right, good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to get on here and do my daily streaming. During the week, I don't have a set time of day, but I try to do it daily. Um, for those, if you're watching on YouTube right now, you're probably, well, I know you are. You're on my Jimmy Pockets YouTube channel because I no longer will be doing any of this kind of commentary or political views on my other YouTube channel. But I recommend even individuals who are watching this on the Jimmy Pockets YouTube to come over to Rumble. It's called Empty Pockets Podcast. And because there's going to be Rumble only content, not every live stream will be streamed on both platforms. So, you know, you want to keep listening, you're going to have to make some arrangements. And if you're not, and I hear a lot of people say Rumble that's confusing or whatever, it's really not. It has a different format, but signing up to it and then trying to follow individuals you want to follow is not really hard at all. Saying that, I don't find it to, when it goes in browse mode, it still seems to stick with something that has something to do with somebody I'm following for the most part. Unlike YouTube, it's all over the place. But let's move forward here. What's up, Tyler? Yeah, I know, but you like big boys, don't you? All right, guys. Here's what I'm gonna do today. I've been preaching about eye for an eye. When they come out and get and protest and get violent, we need to do it as much as them, um, because stats show us that we don't do nothing. They keep saying all the violence is coming from the right. No, it's not. The stats that they use for that are completely twisted. None of these, just, I can't say zero, but the percentage of things that they claim that are attacks from the right is usually some kind of KKK member or some kind of supremacist group that has nothing to do with the regular voter who went to the ballot box and voted for Trump. Nothing to do. But this is their tactics. So, and now after the first 100 days, now I started out with a B minus. I ended up with a B plus. I've seen, before I even seen any other commentary on it, there was a few others that were giving him like a B plus. I said, okay, so we're kind of like right on par there. But if you listen to the mainstream media, it's the worst 100 days of any presidency in the history of this country. Generally, a lot of the times, the first 100 days, it doesn't really show much. They try to get a lot of things pushed through because it's like what they call a honeymoon period. Ask for it now because, once we're back home in the little old homestead, you know, you're going to have to beg me for some money. So if you want it now, and not necessarily money, but you get what I'm saying. This is the honeymoon period. Trump don't get a honeymoon period. He doesn't. What's up, Dave? So when they say that, like, that first 100 days is a honeymoon period, you get a lot of things passed that you need to get passed. Um, that's something Trump just has never had an opportunity to experience. Because, I mean, remember the last time he was in office? Within 20 minutes of him being sworn in, they already called for impeachment. 20 minutes. Now, they've been barking it, but they haven't really done nothing up till now. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to play this large portion of this Piers Morgan uh, segment, because he has that congressman, that moron on here from Michigan, that's filing the uh, thing for impeachment. The thing is and now another senator is saying that they need to invoke the 25th Amendment because we're supposedly going to be forced into a war with China because of trade disagreements. When they jump to the extremes so bad. But you know what their problem is? They got nothing of their own to run on because, see, it's still too soon, Democrats. You know how when something bad happens and then you got a buddy that makes an inappropriate joke about it, and then it's not funny yet? And then what's what they say? Oh, I'm sorry, too soon? It's too soon. People still remember the last 4 years. So, so what happens is the last 4 years, the way Democrats acting like all that stuff should have been fixed and turned around in 100 days. You know, it's kind of hard, and this is funny because it depends on who you're listening to. You'll see one congressperson and media outlet talking about, well, here's our strengths, here's our weaknesses, and blah blah blah. They'd be honest about it. Then you got another congressman or senator over on this side with another news outlet, and it's like we're about to have hell rain down upon us because our president's doing such a horrible job. The problem is they say it, but they can't back it up. It's kind of like Doge and taking away your Social Security and all this other stuff. They're still saying it. They're saying, well, they took your Social Security. He took your Social Security. That's what you voted for. Nobody who were actually eligible for Social Security lost their Social Security. Nobody who was really eligible for Medicaid, still has Medicaid. Anybody actually eligible for Medicare, still have Medicare. So when they say these comments, they're pulling this stuff out of their ass. And you would think somebody that's listening to them on their side would say, well, I don't know anybody who's lost their Social Security or Medicaid or Medicare. Uh, you know what I mean? They're not bringing people out. Who do they march out in front of these cameras? The people who lost their jobs in government, the people who are boo-hooing and whining their asses off. Matter of fact, they had a rally or protest, I guess it'd be a protest, and Jamie Raskin was there, and Jack Posobiec. Anybody knows him at all? He's like a freelance, conservative reporter type individual. Kind of an arrogant guy, but I mean, he gets in there and he doesn't start trouble or nothing. But he went in there and asked a question, and I can't even remember what the question was, but it wasn't nothing derogatory or anything. It really wasn't. And they got violent with him. And the senator just let it happen. Didn't try to stop them, didn't try to break them up. Nothing. This is what they want. They want conflict. Now, the people, because it was people against Jack, will be considered heroes. They break the law, assaulting somebody, and they'll be considered heroes. Like the judges who are helping out these illegal immigrants. They even, one senator, or congressman, even admitted that, yeah, what she did is illegal. But she's heroic for doing it. Excuse me, but what happened to the rule of law? And no one's above the law. No one's above the law. And how do you grantize an illegal act? How? How is it you make... Hang on a second, guys. My legs asleep. Sorry about that. My legs falling asleep on this wooden chair. What's up, Andy? So, how do you consider any of these acts heroic? But, you know, instead of me just sitting here bloviating as I do, let's start look at this segment from the Piers Morgan show, and I'm gonna stop and talk, and you guys give me some feedback. This is new to me. I usually just play a video sometimes. Sometimes I talk so much I never get to the video, like right now, and sometimes, you know, I just play the video and then that's it, just to second my point as far as showing video proof or whatever. But today I'm watching it for the first time. So I consider this like a reaction video. I know people are probably tired of hearing that term. But I'm figuring out, I'm trying to find my lane, guys. Understand what I mean? I'm trying to find my groove. I'm trying to find my lane of where I belong. And there's so many different ways to do content. And of course, I like my content being the political side of things. Not saying that it always has to be, but for the moment it is. So let's get started on this video and see where we go. Let me bring it up here.
People often say that days feel like hours when they're relaxing on the beach, but they also say it when they're highly stressed or having dental surgery. We can probably all agree that President Trump's first 100 days have felt more like 1,000. But is America basking in the sun while dreaming of a bright future, or is it having a root canal surgery?
You know, I said it yesterday when I did this list of accomplishments in the first 100 days. Most people can't even give that type of a list in actually most, in all honesty, 4 years of being in office. This is the first 100 days. It's crazy.
Surgery. Our esteemed panelists will grade the president on the economy, war, culture, and immigration. Everyone has to give him some praise, and everyone has to criticize him too. Them's the rules today. I'm joined by founder and CEO of the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, author of Bad News and Second Class, Batyar Ungar Sargon, the CEO of Timcast Media, Tim Poole, and senior presidential advisor for the US Agency for Global Media, Carrie Lake. Well, a star-studded panel on a starry day. Cenk will be beamed into us imminently, I'm informed. So we'll leave him as this large black square at the moment, which has a kind of ominous feel to it. Let me start with you, Tim Poole, because you're not a full-on Trumper, but you're not a full-on Trump basher. You see some good, you see some bad. When you look at the 100 days in totality, what are you giving Trump on the scoreboard?
A regular grade, I guess, B plus. You know what I would say is the
another B+.
firings, the getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse have been beyond my expectations. I'm absolutely happy with that. Selective tariffs, I'm a huge fan and have been a huge fan for a while. I do think universal tariffs I'm very skeptical on, but I did vote for the man, and I do believe that it's been substantially better than what we've seen with Biden by miles. Deportation, I think, is going fairly well. I think a lot of the concerns and criticisms are overhyped, but we'll see. I think overall pretty good.
I mean, would you have said the same thing if Joe Biden had this first 100 days, which by any kind of yardstick have been pretty chaotic, a lot of changing, spinning plates, and a tariff war that so far has caused a lot of short-term damage to the US economy? In all honesty, would you have said the same analysis if it was Biden?
Probably not. I do think it's fair to point out that we're all going to be biased in some regard or another. And Donald Trump's administration, his worldview and his policies more align with me morally. And I think that's a big issue for most people. That being said, when Joe Biden came out and he was fighting against overdraft fees, I praised it. If Joe Biden had come out and said, we're going to put tariffs in these certain areas, in fact, I never criticized him on any of the tariffs he did. I think the issue is largely criticize where criticism is due and praise where praise is due. Donald Trump has certainly made some errors. He has this gaffe going around from ABC where he appears to genuinely believe Roberto Garcia actually had MS-13 written on his hand, which is incorrect.
Y'all remember that, right? The tattoo on the hand where somebody had put on the picture of what each one of those tattoos represent. And President Trump hadn't seen it before he did the video showing the hand. And he thought, just like a lot of the media thought, that, well, Trump thought it was real, and media thought it was doctored, when all it was doing is showing what these symbolic picture tattoos on their knuckles, what they mean. So we'll go for it.
But, you know, if he's going to make mistakes, we accept those. If he's going to advance policies that are in line with the majority of Americans' moral views, or at least what I support, then I'm going to be substantially more forgiving on his errors than I would be for someone like Joe Biden, who represented open borders, trans surgeries for children, and other policies which I found to be destructive.
All right, Carrie Lake, you're very pro-Trump. We know that. I like Donald Trump personally. I speak to him quite regularly. I've got to say, though, this is a massive throw of the dice. He's come back into the White House. He's thrown everything, including the kitchen sink, up in the air. He has turned all establishment norms on their head. And right now, he's got very poor approval ratings and a really in shock US.
I disagree on that very poor approval rating. Now, if you break it down by specific topic or policy, yeah, you're going to find some things that they disagree with him on. Like a lot of people are afraid of the tariff thing. But overall, his approval rating is not tanked by no means. So that's a little bit of ingenuous statement there.
This economy that doesn't quite know what it's going to do or how this all plays out. It's a roll of the dice, isn't it? Because at some stage, this has to work. If it doesn't work, then come the midterms, the Republicans are going to be in big trouble?
Well, let me start by saying I'm pro-America, and this is why I love President Trump and I love his agenda, because he has put our country first. I disagree with you. I think you're talking about some really bogus polling. I know how polling works. I ran for office twice. Trust me, I know how polling works. You can make a poll say anything. And it's typical for the mainstream media to try to downplay all of the accomplishments of President Trump and his incredible administration. He has had no choice but to go in like a bull in a china shop and move quickly. We were on the verge, Piers, of losing our country after 4 abysmal years of Joe Biden. The inflation was out of control. The border was wide open. People were pouring in, including gangbangers like this guy that the fake news media is acting like his second coming, this Kilmore guy. And they're going to bat for him. They don't give a damn about the American people. And so President Trump has had to act and move quickly. I'm glad he has, and he has overwhelming support. Even Tim talked about what he did with and what he is continuing to do with DOJ, coming in and cleaning out these agencies, pulling back, slimming down the bureaucracy. It has to be done or we will lose our country. We're not out of the woods just yet. And thank God for President Trump. Joe Biden had 100 excuses for why we had inflation, the open border, high gas prices, all kinds of problems. He had 100 excuses.
Yeah, 100 excuses. And the true excuse ain't one. He's one of those people that, and it's not him, it's his handlers that were telling him what to say, could put a spin on everything to make it look like he's the victim, basically, which made us the victim.
President Trump simply needed 100 days to get things turned around. I can't wait for the next 100 days. Frankly, I wish we could have him for the next, 10,000 days, because we need a fighter like President Trump for the long road.
Give me one criticism of the 100 days so far.
I really don't see any criticism. And I'm not saying that because I know him and I like him. I'm saying that because he's done a great.
Yeah, see, that's disingenuous too. And I like Carrie Lake. There is criticism here to be looked at. And one of them is, in my opinion, and these aren't, like in the scheme of things, a big picture problems. But I think he underestimated Putin. And I think that he really overestimated the news media, basically, because I think he thought he would get a fair shake this round, especially when he calls them out so much. But it hasn't happened. But that's not really part of this conversation. But there are a few things. I'm trying to think of them at the top of my head. We'll continue. I don't want to draw this out too long just for that.
Great job. I mean, he's a human being. Every once in a while, you might make a tiny misstep. I can't off the top of my head.
Pretend he's Joe Biden for a minute and try that. Answer that question again.
Well, you know what? Honestly, if he was doing the things Joe Biden did, if President Trump let inflation go through the roof, if President Trump opened up the borders and allowed children to be trafficked, fentanyl to be trafficked in, if President Trump was trying to start up wars rather than bring about peace, I would be very critical of him. Trust me. I'm very realistic. And if he were doing things that were dumb and stupid, I would be all over it, calling it dumb and stupid. He's doing things that are strong, that are brilliant, and that I believe will help restore America and return us to our greatness.
All right, well, Cenk Uygur, welcome to Uncensored. You're laughing, I suspect, not in a way that indicates fulsome support for what Ms. Lake was just saying.
No, not fulsome support at all. All right, so first, usually, obviously we're always fair, right? So in the beginning, he comes out and
Did you hear that? Cenk Uygur saying he's always fair. Cenk Uygur has Trump derangement syndrome. Now, he's lightened up a little bit, but not a whole lot. But before the last time he was President Trump was in office. Oh my God, this thing, Cenk Uygur would foam at the mouth almost when he get in one of those rants of his about Trump. But let's continue.
He closed the border, and that's really popular. That's what people elected him for. He does a lot of executive orders. Now, a lot of those in the beginning, very beginning, I disagreed with instantly, but some of the later ones were more disastrous. But it looked like there was action. In his polling, and that's back when, of course, Republicans believed in polling, when he was above 50% and popular, et cetera. And then what did he do? He pulled a Trump. He can't help himself. He loves his authoritarian tendencies, to put it mildly. He loves testing the limits of what he could do. He started talking about third term, started saying we're not doing due process, we're not listening to the courts, et cetera. And now he's lost people on all sides, the wild, outrageous tariffs. And, obviously, Batya and Kerry and I had a debate about that, and I was right and they were wrong. And so I'm curious to see if they'll admit that now, because I said, of course, Trump will pull back the global tariffs. They were nuclear and ridiculous, and he pulled them back, 2 days after we had that debate? So now he's made a giant mess of it. I mean, everyone from Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Patrick Bet-David, Dave Portnoy, Joe Rogan, and yesterday, Alex Jones, all saying, what's going on here? Even they didn't sign up for violating the Constitution and due process and all of that, let alone.
Once again, he's being disingenuous. He's not going against the Constitution. He's standing up to lower level court activist judges. It's his job. So let's continue. Like I said, Cenk Uygur, he'll find something wrong with Trump no matter what.
Alone, the trillions of dollars he's bled out of the market by having no idea how to handle things economically. So he started out strong in the beginning for a couple of days, and then the rest has now just been a total debacle and disaster. And Piers, I'm always amused by both sides, and you've seen me call out both sides live as it's happening, when the Democrats were like, oh, Joe Biden's polling's in the 30s, but I bet it bounces back to the 60s, or polling doesn't matter. Whenever they're down, always polling doesn't matter, or polling is fake. And now when Trump is in the 39, 40% range, all of a sudden, here's Kari Lake telling us that polling doesn't matter or it isn't real. It's real. It's not perfect, but it's real. Trump is badly, badly hurt. I mean, geez, one last fact. 52% in a recent poll of Americans said that he was a, quote, a dangerous dictator looking to take away American democracy, including 56% of independents and a shockingly high 17% of Republicans think he's a dangerous dictator. You really can't handle it any worse than that.
Now, I may be about to shock you with this, but talent.
All right, I'm jumping ahead here because that looks like a little infomercial.
The stats tell a story. They're not always completely infallible, but they tell a story. His approval rating, Trump peaked at 52%, which was an incredible figure, given that it was down at 34% when he left office in 2021. But now it's slid back to 44%, which is an extremely rapid fall. And it's linked almost entirely to what's going on with the economy. Are you entirely confident that his strategy here is A, one, that he planned exactly how it's rolled out, and B, that it's working how he intended it?
I don't really know about his intentions. Unlike you, Piers, I don't talk to him regularly. But I can tell you that I think it's going very, very well. I know the polling is bad. He started out with a large portion of the country who really, really dislikes him. He managed to convince a lot of independents and a lot of Democrats to give him a shot and to vote for him. But that doesn't mean that he convinced people to like him. He's a very polarizing person, just his personality. But I think when you look at the agenda, he has tailor-made this agenda for the new base of the GOP, which is the working class. And when you talk to working class Americans, which I do all the time, and I hear from hundreds, if not thousands of them on a regular basis, they love this. They feel like this is exactly what they voted for. The situation with China was unsustainable. It made the elites in this country very, very wealthy, which is why elites on the left and on the right are furious at him and why Wall Street is furious at him. But working class people see this as him turning the boat around and once again prioritizing American prosperity rather than what we've had, which is the pillaging of the middle class by the elites. And I think, you asked Tim Pool a really good question. Well, would you have cheered Joe Biden if he had done the same things that you liked here? Piers, it is unimaginable that a Democrat would do what President Trump just did, because Wall Street now is very much a funder of the Democrats. And if you look at President Obama, you look at his first action in office, it was given a $700 billion bailout to Wall Street, while 10 million Americans lost their homes. And that included $30 billion of bonuses to the crooks who made those Americans homeless. He chose Wall Street over Main Street because the Democrats had become the party of the rich. And what we just saw is an American president choosing Main Street over Wall Street. And that is what people are going to remember at the end of the day from these 100 days.
Yeah, her voice is strange. Her message is right. I don't know if I can listen to her all day. But yeah, so her message is right. And I said during this tariff thing, Wall Street is punishing Trump when it dipped, because Wall Street is on China's side. Make no mistake about it, because Wall Street and everybody who's in there with deep pockets trying to get even deeper pockets that trade large on the market want companies to stay in China. So basically, all these rich people that the left claims Trump's trying to help, it could be further from the truth. But you'll not hear that on mainstream media. Let's continue.
Okay. Well, look, Trump has used the opening moments of his 100 days rally to condemn a lunatic, dumb guy for demanding his impeachment. Well, Democratic Congressman Sri Tanadar introduced formal articles of impeachment earlier this week, citing acts of tyranny and abuse of power. And he joins me now. Welcome to you, Congressman.
Thank you.
So you're going hard on Trump. You're citing sweeping abuse of power, flagrant violations of the Constitution, acts of tyranny that undermine American democracy and threaten the rule of law. Out of interest, what has Trump done that has massively surprised you, or that most of his diehard supporters didn't vote for?
Well, look, the tariffs, this is Congress's prerogative. He took that over illegally, unconstitutionally, and made a mess of it. And that lost stock values, people's 401k value got lost. He made a mess of it, and he tried to bully China. That didn't work. And right now, prices of everything are going up. He got elected because people thought he was best in handling the economy. It turned out that he made a mess of it. Prices have gone up. Now he's trying to tell Amazon, don't tell people.
Is this guy a lunatic? By the way, this is the congressman that's filing the articles of impeachment against Trump. But what world is he living in that all these things are happening? Man's delusional.
That a tariff addition to the prices. He has trampled freedom of first right, freedom. Supreme Court 9-0 decision to bring Garcia back because he did not get the due process. Trump said he ignored that ruling. He just said yesterday that he's able to bring him back, but he will not bring him back. So he's defying Supreme Court. And that was the last straw for me. And that's why I introduced the articles of impeachment to impeach. This president must go. He has done unconstitutional act, illegal act. And
where's your articles of impeachment when Biden opened the border wide open and then made a deal with another country to empty out their prisons and send them all up here. Where was the articles of impeachment for that, for Biden? Man, I'm telling you, this dude's delusional as hell.
This cannot stand.
I mean, again, I'd simply say, what do you think that he's doing that his supporters didn't expect him to do? He said, I'm going to sort the southern border out, which he indisputably has done. I'm going to get very, very tough on deportations of illegal immigrants. And all right, there are one or two cases which have got the headlines, which are certainly, in my estimation, worth examining on a due process question. But the majority of people have been deported. There seems to be no question mark over. He's challenging court power in a number of areas, but has said ultimately he will abide by the will of the courts. None of this strikes me particularly, at the moment, the behavior of a dictator who's just decided.
Okay, so this dude over here is saying that he's defying the courts, and so he should be impeached. What about when Biden did this loan forgiveness and the Supreme Court told him no, it was unconstitutional, and all we heard was crickets, because Biden said, I'm gonna do it anyway, and crickets. Yeah, it's crazy shit.
None of these rules count for me.
Well, look at all the polls. There are several polls that came out last week, and he's underwater in almost every category, including economy, that is supposed to be his best category. And his own supporters are now, having buyer's remorse that they made a mistake, that he hasn't worked on the economy that like he said he's going to do. Instead, he's talking about Greenland and making Canada great and military action against Mexico. None of this his supporters expected him to do. They expected him to fix the economy, because that's what they thought. And he said that's what he's going to do.
Out of interest, and look, I mean, this tariff war is still in a very early stage. You say that he hasn't succeeded in bullying China, as you put it, but how do you know it won't succeed over time? Trump Trump has launched a radical tariff war, no other word for it. What happens if in, say, 6 months' time, it turns out that most of the countries that the United States has trade deals with have renegotiated in America's favor, and including China? Now, in that eventuality, if the economy is doing well again, would you admit then that you were a little too hasty? In other words, should this be allowed to be given time to see if it works?
Look, we have seen the flip-flops. One day the tariffs are on, the very next day he takes them off. He first acts tough on China, then he says he's going to be nice to China. It's about how he wakes up in the morning and whatever, he thinks about. There is no plan. There is no, plan or strategy here. It's just Trump, whatever he thinks he is. He has got a defense secretary who can't keep any secrets, sharing sensitive information on Signal chat. This is, he has got a health and human services secretary that is making, horrible medical decisions. He's got a staff that is not, he's got a cabinet that's not competent. And he's just,
Do you agree that he has stemmed the issue at the southern border by 95%, that the number of people coming in illegally on that border has reduced by 95%? Do you accept that? And do you think that's been a good thing, a successful story? If you're always on the move, as I am, you probably find it difficult.
All these little internal infomercials crazy.
There has been some progress on protecting the borders. He's put the military on the border. But we are also seeing American citizens being deported. 2-year-old young American children have been.
Right there. That's the bullshit I'm talking about. These children were not deported. They did not go after the children. The mother was being deported. And she requested, as a mother can, to take her children with her. Yes, they were born here. As it is written at this point in time, they have birthright citizenship. But if you, let's say Trump administration would have said, no, you can't take the child because the child's a U.S. citizen. And I've seen this. This happened, I think, a few weeks ago. They talked about Trump separating children from the parents. Remember that? Separating children from, pulling them out of the arms, clutching arms of their mother in his last term. So this couple had children, and they, for whatever reason, the officials deemed that it was not safe for the child to be staying with the parents. So they deported the parents, and the children are here. Headlines read, it's already started. Trump separating mothers from their children and vice versa, whatever. So it's damn if you do and damn if you don't. They write bad headlines to keep U.S. born citizens here and separating, because that's how it has to happen. They're going to get deported. They're gone no matter what. So if he does separate them, he's a bad guy. If he allows a mother who's probably a very good mother but came across the southern border, and let's be honest, they were invited. I don't hold nothing against most of the people who walked across the southern border, because maybe not in the beginning, but right there through the middle, absolutely they were invited here by the Biden administration. So I don't hold that against them, but they still got to go. So this mother requested to take her child with her, as she has the right to. And apparently there was nothing wrong with this young lady. So she was allowed to take her natural born citizen child with her back to her home country. When this child gets old enough, it has the right to come back here because it is a U.S. citizen. And he can bring his mother back with him. But he has to be at the age of consent. He has to be able to do it legally. Disingenuous. That asshole right there is totally disingenuous.
Deported people, American citizens, children with cancer have been deported without due process.
If somebody's got an illness, they have an illness. Do we keep them here and pay for all their medical care, and they are an illegal citizen or non-citizen? Sorry. This asshole's just he's a joke.
So it goes both ways. While some accomplishments have been done at the border, he's also not given the due process to many of the immigrants.
Let me bring in Tim Poole. Tim, your response to the congressman and his plan, well, he's not planned, he's gone ahead with it, issued articles of impeachment against Trump.
Factual but not truthful. American citizens weren't deported. That's just not true. Due process was given to all of these people. Look, if you want to argue that someone like Abrego Garcia deserved an additional hearing, a third or fourth hearing, or that as the actual due process they're concerned about pertaining to him is a USCIS interview to determine the current standing of Guatemala and this Barrios 18 gang, by all means, send a USCIS agent down to El Salvador, his home country, and have that conversation. But instead of actually dealing with these issues, what do we get? Bloviating nonsense. It's 100 days in, we're going to impeach him for what? Oh, he's doing all of these things wrong or whatever. Look, the American people voted for this. They're largely happy with what they want. People have concerns about the economy. His polls are down. That's true. That's fine. But a lot of this is hyper-partisan sophistry intended to rile people up. There's two reasons why I'll tell you Trump's polls are down. And they are down. If you track Rasmussen, he dropped by about 6 or 7 points from where he was earlier. It's a swing, not a drop. He's down by 4. And this is probably due to tariffs. When you look at the corporate press, the principal institutions, ABC, et cetera, he's down in the double digits. However, if you go back to the start of his second term, you can see that the polls completely disagree with each other in ridiculous ways. One day he's up 10. The next day, a new polling agency says he's down 10. The only thing you really need to track is a singular poll's movement over time. And we are seeing a minor decline. That is likely due to 401ks dropping, people being concerned about this. Does this rise to the level of impeachment? No. I think you're doing this largely because you want to get your name out there, because the Democrats have no front runner. No one knows who's in charge of the party. So everyone's clawing to the top of the crabs in a barrel to try and be the pick me for 2028.
All right, Congressman. Congressman, you're just doing this because you're a narcissist, basically.
Well, look, in the first 100 days, his numbers are lower than any other president. You had to go back 70 years.
So
and the only other bad numbers for a president in the first 100 days was Trump 45. So people have spoken.
Is that why you're doing it?
People are having a buyer's remorse. People are, I've spoken to many of Trump's supporters, and they are hugely disappointed by his actions, by his failure to fix the economy.
Bullshit.
That's number one on people's minds.
Okay, Carrie, what's your response to the congressman? Because there are lots of people saying this, and the Democrats have got their gander up a bit now. They're beginning to marshal their so-called resistance in a better way, because Trump's giving them a lot of opportunity to do that. At what point politically do you start feeling twitchy if the tariff war doesn't work how Trump intends it to?
First of all, where did this guy come from? No, with all due respect, this is an idiotic thing to do. And it's proving that the Democrat Party has no play. They don't know what to do right now because Trump is winning on everything. He's strategizing how to fix the economy that Joe Biden drove not only into a ditch, but off a cliff. And this is why the American people were suffering. And it sounds to me like this is a political move to try to put him in good graces with the AOC crowd and the very, very far left radical crowd ahead of another election. This is ridiculous. The American people were sick of the previous attempts of impeaching President Trump before. They don't want to see this again. And I'm embarrassed for this gentleman. I'm embarrassed for that congressman that he is doing that he's fallen to that level to try to impeach President Trump from the serious missteps of Joe Biden and that administration that almost broke the backs of every American in this country. What about the fentanyl that's no longer pouring across the border? What about the lives that are saved there? What about a president who's trying to end a war that's killing thousands, tens of thousands of people and costing all kinds of our treasure over in Ukraine? What about that? No, he's trying to concentrate on something to make people all of a sudden know who he is so that he can raise money and run for re-election. I find it despicable. I really do.
Congressman, you're despicable.
Well, that's just what.
No, the action is despicable. I don't know this congressman. I find his actions despicable and political. Rather than going to work every day and fighting for the American people in his district, he's trying to thwart President Trump as President Trump works very hard to try to save this country and get us on the right track.
Okay, Congressman, you're doing despicable things.
Well, look, he has failed on economy. Our relationship with our allies.
He's not failed on the economy.
See, that's a lie. Do you all feel like we're paying a shit ton more money now than we was in the last couple of years? This dude is a joke, man. What the fuck? His party should come slap him in the back of the head and tell him to shut the fuck up and get off TV.
Unimpeachable.
Look, he said on day one, he said he's going to fix Ukraine war. He hasn't done that in 100 days.
That's not an impeachable offense. That's being overbearing, overconfident. We just got the mineral deal this week, you stupid idiot.
Nothing that he said he's going to do he has done. And,
What? Oh, this guy. You know what? If the stakes wasn't so high, this would be very amusing. But this dude is he's just a nut.
So people, economy is in terrible shape. His tariffs are totally unproductive. And auto industry, I represent Detroit, Michigan. The auto industry is hurting. Auto workers are losing their jobs. Auto
He's going
factories
to
in
save
America
the
are
auto
closing.
industry.
Look, this he hasn't thought this through. When you impose tariffs, you got to be ready to have manufacturing happening in America. I agree that more manufacturing needs to happen in America, but it doesn't happen just because he raises tariffs on foreign countries. You need to invest in manufacturing. This is a process that takes tens of years to get this done. And
Okay,
there is
let me
no
bring
plan.
in. All right, let me bring in.
Is this
Yeah.
Congressman out of Michigan?
So it takes tens of years. Kind of weird how to say it. But when do we start? What do you do, dumbass? I've always said we are not capable of going cold turkey against China on a lot of products. But this does put a kick in the ass on the automotive industry to start firing up American assembly plants and start making that stuff over here, start making the parts. So that's an assembly plant. We need to be able to make more, if not all of the parts that they are trying to assemble on an assembly line. Instead of Mexico or China doing it, it needs to be us. This guy, I don't know. Did somebody throw a comedian in this? Is this what this guy is?
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
I represent.
And you're
proudly
not
represent
for
Detroit.
President Trump. You're not for the tariffs that are going to single-handedly save the American auto industry. Good luck. Good luck getting reelected with
Look, our
that.
car prices are going to go up. Domestic cars are going to be more expensive. Foreign cars are going to be more expensive. People won't be able to afford buy a car.
The American middle class
Yeah,
is going to be
all
bolstered
right.
and is going to come back alive, and they're going to be able to afford to buy things. And this is, we talked about this last time around. The American middle class was practically gone when President Trump stepped foot 100 days into the Oval Office. Give him a little bit of a chance here. 100 days is a lot to turn around Joe Biden, who, as I said, destroyed the American economy and continued to destroy manufacturing here.
All right, Cheng.
Yeah. So first of all, the propaganda is getting tiresome. Trump has done a brilliant job. You can't find one thing to criticize him over. And, and Joe Biden had destroyed the economy. It was record low unemployment. So you're being preposterous. No one believes you. Everyone realizes it was the tariffs.
Record low unemployment. That's a false statement, because what happens is they track that by people who are filed for unemployment benefits. Well, at a certain point, they no longer are eligible for it, then they're off of it. That doesn't mean they went back to work. And also, let's say they did. There's so many that are underemployed in this country than they could be if we had manufacturing back in this country a lot stronger than what we have right now. So that's using those stats that it was a record low unemployment while Biden was in office. How many of y'all know that didn't have a job? I tell you, these people, how they like to put a spin on stuff is amazing. It's crazy. I'll continue.
He had a perfectly good economy handed to him, and at this point has shattered it to pieces. So I'm getting sick of the propaganda. I'm also getting sick of the, with all due respect, this is idiotic. That's not all due respect. So I'm not sure you have good command of the English language. Okay. All right. Then don't say all due respect. Second of all, you're lecturing people about how to get elected. Carrie, let's be honest. Let's be honest, Carrie. You and I are not in a position to lecture people on how to get elected. Okay. You haven't won a lot of elections. Neither have I. Okay. So at least I've helped in winning elections. I'm not sure you have. So, and the brother over here in Michigan has actually won an election, but we're conflating two different things, okay? Number one, we're talking about the polling. Look, Trump's down and hurt. It doesn't matter how much you guys spin it. We're going to have that play out. But that's not related to impeachment. Whether he's popular or not has nothing to do with impeachment. So I don't even know why the congressman brought that up, to be honest. And I think that this impeachment thing is way too premature. What, are you going to get enough Republicans on board? There's no way you are, right? On the other hand, are there actual good grounds for it? There are. You're just not going to be able to execute it. The grounds for impeachment are doing things that are illegal or unconstitutional. Has he subverted the will of Congress? Many, many times. They appropriated money, he refuses to spend it. Or he's spending money that they didn't appropriate. Or he's taking powers like the power to tariff that Congress has, or the power to declare war that Congress has. I know that last one every president abuses. But we have massive violations of the Constitution here. The Supreme Court says bring this guy back, Abrego Garcia. Not only that, there was a clear do not deport order, and he violates that order and then admits that it was a mistake, and he still won't bring him back. The problem there isn't immigration, it's due process, which is the cornerstone of Western civilization.
Cheng,
and Batya and Tim and others, look, we can go back and blame others.
Okay, but look, Michelle Obama piped up about this immigration stuff on X, and I replied to her, and my replies had gazillions of retweets, because all I said was, as far as I'm aware, her own husband deported over 3 million people in 8 years. And no one can persuade me that all of those were done with perfect due process. Right? But I don't remember anything like the cacophony of outrage from the left when that was going down. And Obama, I've said this before many times, he was the deporter in chief, was his nickname in Mexico. He couldn't get people out of the country fast enough. Why was it fine for Obama? And why do liberals just try and pretend that never happened? And why is it so evil when Trump throws out a lot of people that I would imagine most Americans totally agree with? Yes, there are some. Garcia may well be one or not. We don't really know yet whether he was in this gang or not. If he was, then he deserves to be in the El Salvador hellhole. If he isn't and he's innocent, he deserves to come back. But let's not pretend that most of the people that Trump is kicking out were not on the deportation list already and probably deserve to be thrown out.
Yeah. So, Piers, the beautiful thing about me is that I'm consistent on all these things. So when Obama did that, I criticized them. And in fact, when Obama killed Anwar al-Awlaki without due process, I was all over him. That was outrageous. It was and arguably worse than anything Trump has done. And that's where mainstream media loses all their credibility, and Democratic politicians lose their credibility when they're not even-handed. So that was totally unacceptable. But that doesn't make what Trump is doing acceptable. And Trump has he gone further than Obama in terms of turning people back at the border? When you turn people back at the border, as Trump is doing now, and Obama did, that is not constitutional. But has he gone further? Yes. Did Obama ignore court orders?
I tell you, I'm going to make this part 1 of 2, because I don't want to sit here. People got things to do today. I want to start reacting to videos. And this here's an actual whole episode of a show. I just thought that the conversation was interesting enough to go through the whole thing, and I'm watching it at the same time you guys are. So this is not nothing I've watched before we got started here. But saying that, the congressman from Michigan over here in the corner is definitely delusional. Cenk Uygur, in case y'all don't know, he's the leader of the Young Turks program, far left-leaning internet show. You can find it on YouTube, X. But he is also the reason AOC got elected. He was one of the people who basically found her and groomed her to get her elected when she first got started. This young lady up in the corner there across from Cenk, I don't know who she is. Her voice is irritating as hell. Sorry if the young lady, I don't know, can't remember what her name is, but, and then everybody knows Carrie Lake. She's definitely pro-Trump. Trump does nothing wrong. She lives in a state where she's been trying to get elected. That's their voting system is known nationwide for the corruption that they have in Arizona. Of course, everybody knows Tim Pool. Tim Pool, I like. A lot of people don't like. They think he's very super arrogant, and he probably is. But his message is the truth. So I like watching people who tell the truth. And he also, even if it's unpopular, he will explain his point of view to you later. So I kind of respect that. Of course, Piers Morgan, so I said his name backwards there. He's a guy that likes this show. That's what it's all about. It's uncensored. He likes stirring shit up. Gets his show views, but it's the message here is about the impeachment situation. And I want to continue this. Going forward, I probably won't do videos on a full episode of something. This is my very first one of doing reactions. Because I feel like maybe when I talk about what I think about things, and I'm still going to do that, don't get me wrong. I'm not the best communicator, and I think the message gets lost in the way that I try to get it across to everybody. I'm trying to be better at that. I think doing these reaction videos, if we all participate in chat as much as possible, and if we don't know something, we'll learn something. These, and then, like I said, I'm going to play just clips going forward of other things, not this. But so do me a favor, guys. I'm going to live stream the rest of this as a reaction video, so it'll be part 2. But if you're on YouTube watching me, you can stay on YouTube, Jimmy Pockets. But if you want to hear everything without the censorship of YouTube, come over to Rumble. If you don't have Rumble, you don't know anything about it, just punch it up, rumble.com. Join in, activate an account, and follow me. And I got a few others you can follow to get you started. But Jimmy Pockets Podcast, or excuse me, I get it all backwards. Empty Pockets Podcast on Rumble, Jimmy Pockets on YouTube. Now, I ain't saying you got to come over, but if you want the whole story, jump over to Rumble, my friends, because there's content. So now I've been admitted into the Rumble Partnership Program, so there's going to be Rumble Premium live streams that only people who have premium will be able to see. And I'm trying to figure out what I want to do on those things. They're going to be something more special than what's going on. I'm trying to figure out how I want to step my game up on those episodes of live streaming. But I'll figure it out. So give me a thumbs up. I know probably not used to me doing this type of video or live stream, but give me a thumbs up. Follow me if you're not. If you want to join in with the rest of this, my reaction on the rest of this segment, look for a part 2. It's coming. Sorry about all the squirming around too, guys. I'm having problems today. Most people know I have physical issues, and it's been very painful to sit here in this chair to do this. So I apologize for all the squirgling around. Andy, you don't like movie Mondays? My friend, you don't like movie Mondays, or you do? give me a quick comment before I log off here so I can know what you're talking about. Because you're one of some of the people that join me all the time on these live streams. So I don't want to upset you. I want to do what everybody likes to see and likes to join in with. Love movie Mondays, but don't put them. Oh, no, 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 Andy, that's not, because that's something I already do, guys. Every Monday, it's movie Monday. That is not going to be part of my premium content. I'm trying to think of something different to do for the premium access content. Movie Mondays is staying right where it is, my friend. Don't worry about that. It's not going anywhere. I wouldn't do that to you. So we're all good there. Give me a thumbs up, because Movie Monday is going to stay on regular Rumble. It's not going to be a premium access only thing. But saying that, guys, I got to get out of this chair. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to see part 2, look for it. It'll be pretty much the same title, and it'll just say part 2 on it. I'm going to go back and change this title and put part 1 on it, because I was hoping to do this whole thing, but I'm not able to do it right now. So thanks for tuning in. My name is James. This is Empty Pockets Podcast on Rumble, Jimmy Pockets on YouTube. Thanks, everybody. Till next time, I'm out of here.